All right, Saturday morning Krug show. Jake Hutchinson is in the house. We are fired up, both of us. We're at rookie minicamp. We're going to tell you what we saw. We're going to discuss it right now. Come aboard. Off and running. It's the Krug Show on a Saturday morning. Hope everybody's having a great day. It is February. It is May the 10th. Hope everybody's having a great one. Getting ready to go watch my kid play a little high school baseball. Fired up about that. Fired up to have my man Jake Hutchinson in the house today for the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So try to get there early, get some brisket chili. Also, we are brought to you by Mancini's. That's right. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Mancini's Sleep World. Their huge Memorial Day sale is live now through June the 9th. You can save up to $1,200 on select adjustable mattress sets. Plus, they're throwing an extra 10% off with our promo code Krug10. It's all backed by their Rest Easy promise, best price guarantee. They're going to match the lowest price you can find. 365-night comfort guarantee. You're going to get a full year to try it out. And free next day delivery. And if you've been thinking about upgrading your bed, now is the time. Just make sure you jump on it before June the 9th. Make sure you use that code Krug10, K-R-U-E-G 10 at checkout or online at sleepworld.com. And you will save an additional 10% just because you're a fan of the Krug Show. So thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor. All right, fired up today because Jake Hutchinson is here. Jake's an old friend. We go way, way back, but we were also both yesterday at 49er minicamp. So I wanted to do a stream this morning with somebody who was actually at minicamp and could put their eyes on the players for the very first time, because that's what we got yesterday. We got a chance to watch the players for the first time. We also got a chance to see them try out, some players I thought were pretty interesting. We'll talk about all of the Niners' newest acquisitions today with Jake Hutchinson. Jake, great to see you. And before we get rolling, Jake, everybody should know this if you don't know already. Jake and Dieter put out their own draft guide, which all you got to do is follow them on their YouTube channel, and you'll get a copy of their draft guide, or at least a virtual copy. And Jake, tell people about if they want the draft guide and they want to see what you guys said about the Niner prospects. How do they go about doing it?
Yeah, you just go to our channel, Dieter and Hutch, click the membership, a little join thing. You usually have to go on desktop, but you hit the official SICKO tier, and that's it. And what we're doing is, because the Niners, made some interesting draft picks, not everybody had full write-ups, so we're adding this upcoming week, we're doing a smaller 49ers specific draft guide. Everybody who paid for the full draft guide gets that one. So all you have to do, join as an official SICKO member, and you'll get it.
Very cool. That is very cool. And that's a great idea, by the way. Team specific, like draft review guides.
Yeah.
I could see that being very, very popular.
Yeah, especially because the Niners went a little weird. You know how they are.
Yeah, exactly. Though, the more I watch, the more I'm encouraged. I got to be honest. Last night, I was watching film of maybe Isaiah Nayer. I forget who it was. It was somebody who was at the Shrine game. And out of nowhere, Marquise Siegel stepped into the picture and just smoked somebody. I mean, hit him so hard that it was like, wow, that guy's a hitter.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Siegel out there yesterday. He was one of the guys who wasn't practicing. But again, there's no pads anyway, so you're not gonna see any of that stuff until training camp.
Well, let's talk about that, because we did see Curtis Rourke out there, but he didn't practice. We did see Alfred Collins out there, and he is a absolutely mammoth human being. I thought, okay, looking at his build in the Texas films, I thought, well, I know he's listed at 6'6", 332, and I know that's a huge man. I go, but there's something that says to me that he's probably not naturally as thick as a Kinlaw, who just had these incredibly wide knees and anchor. I mean, the pins on Javon Kinlaw were so ridiculous. But this guy does too. This guy has knees that are like that wide. I mean, his knee is huge. He's not like his natural girth and his weight, and his legs is just gigantic.
Yeah,
I
I
can
think he's more
see
well
why he's
balanced.
good against the run, and I can see why he struggles against the pass.
Yeah, it was because he wasn't practicing yesterday. He said he was going to be cleared to. Well, he answered it in an interesting way. He was asked. I think Matt Barrows asked him, "Is he cleared?" And he went, "I'll be all right," which is not a yes answer. And then he wasn't out there practicing, and it's intriguing because he was in a walking boot at the Texas Pro Day, and so you're like, what is the issue here? They haven't been really upfront about what he's dealing with. Um, for me, anything to deal with like an ankle, foot, like sort of injury for a guy that big worries me a little bit, especially for someone whose like main job is going to be to anchor. We haven't gotten any indications that they're super worried about it, but he wasn't out there practicing, and I would have loved to have seen that. I asked him, as a pass rusher, what does he need to do? Because it's something where you see the power in his hands, right? Like he can absolutely toss guys to the ground, and in the run game, he's just a monster. But like in the pass game, you don't see it as much. And he said what I think he needs to do, which is just use power as his foundation, as opposed to try and finesse, try and go straight through guys' face, be more direct. And I like that answer out of him.
He says he likes to model his game after Calais Campbell, who's 6'8", 307 pounds. That was my biggest concern with Collins is just health. Just health. I liked what I saw from him in his film. He's really strong on first and second down. I don't think he's going to be much of a pass rusher. We'll see. I think he can bat down some passes. I think he could be a really nice player. But I definitely, my main concern is anytime you see somebody who's 6'5", 6'6", and has that long of legs, I'm always concerned about, can they keep the offensive linemen off their legs? Can they maintain, can they stay healthy? Can they stay on the field?
Yeah.
Now, this guy did, though. I will say this. He played in a kind of a deep Texas rotation, but he did play in all the games. I mean, except for one, I believe.
I don't, and they didn't rotate him out too much. I think the other guys rotated more than him, and they kept him in there a lot. But they had a good defensive tackle group at Texas, but he was sort of the linchpin of it, right? And I feel like part of it was just in terms of the pass game is they just asked him to extend, get attached, and then read the play and then disengage. Like some of those guys are shooting gaps and trying to get upfield, and I didn't feel like they were asking him to do that. So I'm really intrigued to see what he looks like in training camp once the pads comes on and Chris Kasurik gets to work with him.
It was great talking to a lot of the guys. I missed some of that yesterday because I didn't get there early enough. But one of the guys that came through was Nick Martin, and he had some large shark slippers on, animal slippers. It's funny, CJ West was asked about Nick Martin. I guess they met at the airport, and somebody said, "Hey, did Martin's shark slippers catch your eye first?" He said, "You can tell he's a guy with character. He's going to have a lot of character, and I'm excited to play in front of him and just continue to build that bond and get to know each other." Martin later admitted to the press that he owns about 20 different pairs of animal themed slippers. I'm taking back my positive scouting report on him now because of the no. But what did you who before we get into specifics? Yeah. Who's anybody stand out to you? If I just said to you, "Hey man, you were at Niner Minicamp," who stood out?
Yeah, I mean, Mikkel looked the part, right? He's huge. He ran over a staffer by accident.
I saw you got that. Jake got the video of Mikkel Williams running over one of the Niner coaches in one of the drills.
And it was interesting. I think what was cool is being up that close and seeing it's really day one. It's really day one for these guys. And so even day one of training camp, you'll see veterans working on stuff with coaches. But these are guys that have no NFL experience. And so coaches, it's like the first day of practice, you see them up close and personal working with them on foot placement, hand placement. Chris Kasurik getting a little frustrated with some of these guys because There's a lot of work to be done. You see Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan looking on at their top pick and like just analyzing what's going on. So I thought Mikel looked the part. Um, I was a little bit disappointed with CJ West, if we're being honest. He looked um, like they could round him into shape a little bit. Wasn't exactly firing off the line, but again, I loved his tape, so I'm not super worried about it. But if that's one concern I'd have, and then Nick Martin, like I didn't have, I have other concerns about Nick Martin. The speed wasn't one thing I was worried about, but he can fly. He can trigger and he can get downhill in a second. Saw that. And then Upton Stout, he looks good, looks fluid in coverage, can flip his hips and run. So I'd say Mikel Williams and Nick Martin, Upton Stout look pretty nice. And also Sebastian Valdez. He's got a little bit of a get off. So he's an interesting guy, the undrafted free agent out of Washington. I'm interested to see.
I'll tell you the guys that opened my eyes. And I was hoping that we would get a chance to see the 250 plus pound kicker, Kenny Almendarez.
He is wide.
He's a big boy. But we didn't get a chance to really see him kick, or if we did, I didn't see it. I thought the play of the day was the deep ball to Isaiah Nayer, where he just, everything that you've read about this guy. 6'4", 35-inch arms, 4.4 flat speed, ridiculous vertical, ridiculous radius. Didn't produce. Produced at Wyoming, went to Texas, tore his knee, caught one ball, then went to Nebraska, had a decent final year. But yeah, didn't generally, when you look at his talent, his production didn't match his talent in any way, shape, or form. And yet there he was out on the practice field, and you can't help but notice the guy. And he made probably the play of the day. It was just a go ball. The quarterback led him a little bit more than maybe I think he thought he was going to be led down the sideline. And he had to kind of open it up a little bit and then show us that incredible arm length and a little bit of the vertical. And we got a chance to see it all. And he caught the ball in stride. And that was impressive. I thought that was, to me, the highlight of the day as far as the passing highlight. There was a Corey Kiner run that I thought was impressive. Corey Kiner definitely is well put together. 5'10", 210. He's pretty thick, but he had a really nice run. I noticed a little bit of Sebastian Valdez. I noticed a little bit of Junior Bergen. The Niners worked out a Baylor defensive end named Steve Linton, who I thought looked really good in some of the drills. He looked fantastic, and they listed him at 248 pounds. There's no way he had to be heavier than that based on what I saw. But I thought Linton, who had a good career at Baylor, really looked good. I thought Marcus Ware, who was brought in as a tryout from
Montana State guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a little undersized. Him and Drew Moss were kind of practicing together. But Ware looked good. He's not a lot of lunging, he's never on the ground. Granted it's drills, but,
right. And there's no pads. So,
yeah. So, but Marcus Ware was out there looking good. The other guy that I noticed, I made a highlight of him. Let me see. The Niners signed the Alabama State corner, James Burgess.
Oh yeah, he's long. I would say out of any DBs. Again, I was watching the D line pretty intently. I noticed Burgess. He's got a lot of length. He looks a little bit like Zoff Frazier, like a super long, sort of almost too skinny, but like sort of a physical man corner with length. He's going to be interesting if they keep him around.
He had a couple of reps. Now, I think the coaches are going to see this, what I saw. He had a couple of reps where he absolutely mirrored, and I forget who it was. Gosh, I can't remember who it was.
There's so many random guys in this. It's hard to. Exactly. 7-on-7, so it's
exactly. But he mirrored somebody just absolutely to perfection. At 6'2", 6'3", long arms, good athlete, good looking athlete. That was an impressive. You're always looking for guys who can play on the perimeter. and that guy looked impressive. Now, I liked him in the lead up to the draft, and he just didn't get drafted. But he's definitely big, and I don't know what his 40 time is, but he seems fast enough. That's a guy that I'll be interested to see if they sign. The other guy kind of opened my eyes, and I was asking about him, is this burner from Utah, Money Parks. I mean, this guy
is the name that did it for you.
Yeah, totally. And then all of a sudden and then the guy's electric. I mean, he's a tiny little guy, but you can see he's got major speed. I don't know what his 40 time clocked was, but I'm going to look it up later because he clearly is fast. I thought he looked pretty good running. So, and I thought Jordan Watkins looked good. I mean, in those drills that the Niners do with the receivers, he's a little thicker than Cowing. He's a little stronger, but he also has that speed. And I think he's going to be a nice player for them. I really do. I know a lot of people were very critical of that pick because of, a lot of people, Shanahan, I think Cowherd was like, Shanahan reached for too many of his own guys. I got to think he's talking about that pick just because he was the first offensive player.
Well, it's funny because Watkins Ole Miss had like a whole, slate of receivers and Trey Harris and I'm forgetting the other one who's also at the Shrine Bowl.
Juice Wells.
Juice Wells. But meanwhile, like they weren't in the playoff. They had like the highest paid group of players, but Jackson Dart, goes to the Giants, even though he threw away I can't get over Jackson Dart. But when I watched Watkins,
are you a fan or not a fan of Jackson Dart?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm not a fan of almost any quarterback that ever plays for Lane Kiffin. It just seems like they don't transition well to the NFL.
Yeah.
Dart does have a good arm. I will say that. I think.
Yeah, but it's not as good as people say. Like if we're
he's not as big as people think. I mean, he's not as tall.
He's a great runner. He's a great runner. That's like maybe his best attribute. But he makes some like mind-boggling plays. I just didn't like what I saw, and I saw him choke away games in clutch moments for an Ole Miss team that like really should have been in the CFP and should have been competing with some of these other rosters. And he's like the guy. I just don't see it. But when I watch Watkins, he sort of profiles right as a burner, just as a guy who's going to run, go balls. But you watch him on tape, and he is pretty firm in his route running. Like he plants his foot hard, and I won't say he's like the snappiest route runner in the class by any stretch, but I was impressed that he has like pretty serious conviction in getting in and out of his breaks. Which I think Kyle Shanahan really has grown to value over the years. I mean, Ayuk's one of his greatest traits is that he's an elite route runner. Like you watch him run that whip route. Ricky Pearsall, he came out a really polished route runner. And Watkins, again, I'm not going to say he's the best in the class, but like he had conviction in getting out of his breaks with a really, really strong first step to plant and drive out of that break.
I don't know if there was anybody else that really stood out to you, but those were the guys to me that stood out. I liked what I saw. As far as what things that we were told in this camp, the Kubiak saying that CMC has looked awesome is probably the best news of the entire week, to be honest, because CMC is their guy, and they're going to try to get him the ball as much as they possibly can in the air and the ground. They're going to hand it to him. They're going to throw it to him. So to hear him say, "Oh yeah, he's looked awesome," that was great to hear because there's a lot that could have been said between awesome and
yeah.
I mean, they could have said, "Hey, he's not healthy or he's out here sporadically."
I mean, I'm not say that, but
no, but
it does seem like he's doing well.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing themselves a disservice if they're telling us that he looks awesome in May and only tell us that he can't do it in July. So we'll see. But the other thing they said was, hey, he volunteered that Brock's having a really good offseason. But then he was just glowing in his endorsement of Curtis Rourke. I couldn't believe how all the positive things he was saying about Rourke. It's pretty obvious that they feel like they've got something in Curtis Rourke. Now, it was an interesting pick. Why? Because they needed offensive linemen. And, it was the 7th round. There might not have been a guy that they liked there. But they liked this quarterback, and they liked him a lot. Now, I didn't, he's out there without his helmet. He's a tall guy.
Yeah.
That's all I can really tell you.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they handle him. If they actually let him, it's going to depend how healthy he is. I would lean more expecting that they're just going to PUP him for the year, let him get healthy, let him learn, let him watch, and just see how it develops. You know, go from there. With Mac and then maybe Tanner Mordecai as the third, or somebody else they bring in. But again, they seem to like him quite a bit. They signed him to the deal pretty quickly. I do. My gut though is that he's going to end up on PUP. We'll see. We'll see. They haven't made a definitive assessment either way. I would love to see him out there playing. But you're right. Yeah, Kubiak raved about him. The quotes he had said he's a big, strong thrower, a guy who stands in the pocket, goes through progressions, really good arm. Obviously, they mentioned the toughness, which is something, you go back to CJ Beathard, that's all they talked about was toughness, not to trigger
That's all he
everybody.
had.
They really value that in quarterbacks, especially because they don't invest in offensive line and they know you're going to take some shots at some point.
Well, and he also called him a winner, called him a leader, said he's elevated 2 programs. He's a really good young quarterback prospect that we like. We're really excited about him. So they obviously like him, and I feel good. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, if you're when you're looking at your depth chart, you start with your quarterbacks, and if you're a 49er fan, I think you got to feel pretty good. I mean, you got Brock Purdy. He's young. He's coming off a great offseason, according to Kubiak. You got Mac Jones, who Kubiak's like, hey, man, this guy's an NFL starter. They clearly like Rourke. I kind of like Mordecai, and it's year 2 in the offense. I think overall, I think you can say definitively that the 49ers, at least at the quarterback position, upgraded from what they had a year ago.
Yeah, without question. I mean,
at quarterback.
Brandon Allen knew the system, but like there's nothing special there. And then Josh Dobbs was like a roulette wheel where it's like, 1 out of every 4 games, you're going to get an awesome performance and the rest are going to be duds. So that's just not a viable way to operate. And having Rourke, where it's a guy that, again, you lock up a guy for 4 years for cheap. Mordecai's cheap. Mac Jones was cheap. Like, you're going to pay Brock, you're going to have some cheap depth behind it. I think you got to like what they have in the QB room right now.
Yeah. So let's move to running back. It's CMC, it's Garendo. They still have Patrick Taylor. Izzy Abanaconda is still there, even though I've never seen him. And then they added, and Juszczyk was brought back. I don't know if that was a smart move, but he's back. And now you've got Jordan James in the draft in the 5th round and Corey Kiner after the draft. And they're very similar. What did you think of James yesterday? I didn't see tons of him. I didn't see any great highlights
either. I saw him run a couple routes on air. Again, this is like these guys. It's like barely a practice. It's like they're out there doing a lot of conditioning, just getting used to like what the drills are, like the pacing of the drills, what they're going to be asked for. I didn't notice too much of James. Again, I was locked in pretty heavily on the defensive line to see how those guys were looking. But yeah, he looked fine. Again, you don't notice anything about running backs until the pads come on, in training camp and especially in the preseason game. Like coaches even tell you that. They're like, you can look good, but, until there's actual contact, it's hard to tell. So I didn't notice too much with the running backs, if I'm being honest.
They got a pretty deep room, though. I mean, if you just said CMC, Juice, Garendo, James, Taylor, who I think is pretty decent, actually. He played pretty well last year. I like Izzy Abanaconda, and I kind of like these rookies. So I think it's a good room. I think there's good depth there. There's good numbers. I don't know about either of these rookie running backs, and I don't know about the health of McCaffrey, but they get good numbers.
I would argue it's weaker depth than they've had in the past for sure.
We'll find out because we didn't at this same point. Jordan Mason's rookie year, we didn't know much about him, so we'll see.
That's true. But Mason, he did have a physical profile, which was sort of encouraging as a bruiser. But yeah, it's way too early to make assessments on any of these guys.
Yeah. Tight end wise, there was, Brian Fleury had very little to do. The Niners had, they have Kittle, they have Luke Farrell, they re-signed Ross Dwelly, and then they have 3 incumbents in Pline, Tongas, and Braden Willis. They did have a couple guys working out, including a guy named Hanshaw who made a really nice grab on the
Yeah, he
sideline
did.
of just a rocket. Somebody threw a rocket to the sideline. This guy made a diving catch. It was the kind of catch that would be a great catch for a receiver, for a tight end. You're like, wow, that was spectacular. What'd you think? I mean, they worked out a couple tight ends. This to me is kind of an interesting spot. I would love to have seen them not go for Dwelly, but go for like a Gerald Everett or somebody who's a little bit more substantial as a second tight end. But
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
showing no interest in that. They like Kittle, they like Farrell. They got those 3 young receiving tight ends, and now they added
yeah.
Dwelly to that, who's another special teamer, I guess.
Well, I would imagine it was part of George Kittle's contract demands to bring Ross Dwelly back. That they're besties. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Dwelly knows the system. I remember back in like 2019 where Kyle Shanahan just lied to us and said he was one of the best players on the team, which just objectively not true on a stacked roster. So he at least knows the system. I mean, he can't block, but he's great. He's got great hands. Again, like it's a guy who's been around, who you're familiar with, in a weak tight end room. It can't hurt. But yeah, they're spending on Luke Farrell because they know that they can't trust themselves to draft a tight end. It was, I think, pretty telling in free agency that we're not even going to mess around with this. I thought they could have gone after my guy Jalen Conyers in undrafted free agency,
Yeah.
but I think Miami swooped on him pretty aggressively, and I think he's going to make that roster down there.
To me, if there was one question that I would love to ask Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch, it would be, why did you guys opt to save money on the undrafted free agent market? That to me was the dumbest decision of the offseason. That is a very good crop of talent to be after. And it's one thing if you don't want to sign veteran free agents in March, I got no problem with that. A lot of those guys are overpaid anyway. They're 33 years old. Who cares? Those guys suck. Most of those guys are on their way to sucking. They're either big name guys who are going to suck, or they're guys who were never good and have always sucked. So the free agent thing, you almost never, like the free agents that go to the new teams, they always hurt the team they left more than they help the team they go to.
Yeah.
So I don't love the free agent market. I'm a draft guy and an undrafted free agent guy. And I thought there were a lot of really good undrafted free agents. I thought the Niners got a few of them. But then I also thought, Seattle got Jared Ivey from Ole Miss, and the Rams got Willie Lampkin. And, there were a lot of guys that I would have liked to have seen the Niners compete for, and they didn't spend. I think Stone Blanton might have gotten the most money.
Who wasn't out there today and wasn't on yesterday, and it wasn't on the roster that they handed us out. So that was interesting.
Yeah, well, what do you make of that? Well, they said they signed him though, so maybe he had some.
I have no idea. Maybe that's like taking time for the medical, or there was something else going on. But he wasn't out there. He wasn't out there, and he wasn't on the roster. So I don't know exactly what's up with that. But I would have loved to see him out there.
Well, exactly. But I mean, I would have loved to have seen the 49ers spend more money. I don't know if you saw the list, but they were near the bottom of the list in undrafted free agent spending. And my first question would be, why? Why would you be last in this?
Yeah. They only had a few spots open is part of it. But yeah, they didn't
cut some of these guys. Some of these guys on their roster stink. I mean, seriously, they've got Zach Johnson taking a roster spot. They got Isaac Alarcon taking a roster spot. They have Sebastian.
He's an exemption, but yeah.
Sebastian Gutierrez is taking a roster spot. You got 3 receiving tight ends that aren't great.
You don't remember Sebastian Gutierrez's incredible play in the preseason where he almost scored a touchdown that wouldn't have counted?
I mean, you got Russell Gage and Trent Taylor taking roster spots. I mean, I think we can find some roster spots. They should have gone for more. They're just being cheap. They're just trying to save money, and that's the wrong area to save money in because it's not a lot of money. You found Evan Anderson last year for $340,000 guaranteed. Now, that was the biggest investment the Niners have ever made in this regime in an undrafted player. And you could argue that what they got in Evan Anderson is worth like 10 times what they paid him. As far as
I don't know about that.
well, if you think if you think this guy's a good against the run player who's going to start this guy already started a game. This guy's already started a game.
It wasn't a high bar, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy's got
showed some
starter
flashes
potential. I mean, this guy's got starter potential as a run, as a nose guard. He will start in the NFL for somebody at some point. I'm just saying, you got him for nothing. You got him for $340,000, and you're going to cut. I realize you want to save money, but that's the wrong area to save. You're not saving very much money. I'd rather save money by saving it any other way than trying to cut my undrafted free agents. It's like the undrafted free agents, you invest nothing, and if you hit, it's a huge hit. If you miss, it's hard. It's a low cost miss. So to not spend is like, why would you not take the free swing that they give you? It's like Joe Lacob buying second round picks. Why wouldn't you spend $2 million on a second round pick if you could turn that second round pick into Draymond Green and potentially change your roster? And that's the kind of player that potentially is out there. So I didn't like that. To me, that made no sense.
They certainly weren't as aggressive as some other teams with guarantees and trying to make moves on. You saw Nick Nash get scooped up aggressively by the Falcons and players like that. It was it wasn't exactly the most inspiring group. I do really like Jacob Robinson. I'm excited to see him. Drew Moss, there's something there. I don't know what Sebastian Valdez is going to be, if he's going to be anything, but he does intrigue me. So there's like a few guys there that have a little something. Stone Blanton, I really liked his tape. But yeah, it wasn't like they were spending big. I don't know. I think it's because they had so many draft picks. They felt like they got most of what they needed. And a lot of that money's guaranteed that they weren't going to go crazy. But again, they only had, I think, 6 spots open. So I wasn't that miffed by their approach.
They may have lost Stone Blanton. Just the only reason I say that is just because he's not listed on the Hourlad depth chart. I don't know.
Well,
I don't
again, on the official thing they gave us, he was not on there. I mean, he was not on the field. So that was odd.
I thought though, when they put out a list of the guys that they had signed, he was on there, but maybe he didn't pass a physical. Who knows? Maybe that,
he was on the list of the 6 undrafted free agents they brought in.
Yeah. So who knows?
Could be a physical issue.
It could be anything. Could be a scheduling conflict. But it is odd. The Niners made some decisions yesterday, roster-wise. They said goodbye to Drake Jackson, and this was just days after Drake Jackson was like, "Hey, man, I'm going to be out there on the field this summer." It's almost like maybe his agent told him, "Hey, look, they're going to cut you at the end of the week.
Yeah.
So you might as well go tell everybody that before you're cut that you're going to be out there." This is obviously a disappointing thing for the 49ers. This was their first pick in the 2022 draft. It's May of 2025. To cut your second round draft choice in May of 2025 before he really establishes himself, and to just quit on the kid at this point. I'm not saying that they should stick with him, but either way, the Niners drafted in 21, 22, and 23 drafts 10 players in the first 3 rounds of the draft. And the only thing they have to show for it is Jair Brown and Jake Moody. And most people want Jake Moody, worlds away from actually playing. So you got Jair Brown out of 10 picks.
And he's really underwhelmed.
I like Jair Brown. I still have hope for him. But all you got out of 3 drafts in the first 2 days of 3 drafts is Jair Brown?
Well, that's the thing is, like, people...
That's bad, man. That's bad.
You know, when I've questioned like some of the approach with like Nick Martin and Upton Stout in terms of value and asking questions about drafting some size outliers, it's like, so they nailed the draft last year. Like, we're just gonna ignore the fact that they whiffed. They almost completely whiffed for 3 straight years, and Brock Purdy saved their jobs, and we're, like, not
Lenore,
supposed
yeah.
to provide context, right? Like, that's the concern, right? Is that they've overvalued their guys, and they drafted really, really poorly, and they nailed it last year. Again, early returns are very good. But to just say, okay, they're definitely going to do the same thing and nail all 11 picks, and they're just going to get 6 starters from day one, and nothing's going to go wrong is insane. Like, most like draft picks don't work out. That's just what happens. Like, overwhelmingly, draft picks are bust, and you get a lot of guys that are undrafted free agents because like half the league is undrafted free agents. It's just the composition of it. But yeah, they were terrible at drafting for like basically 3 straight years. And think ideally they've turned a corner with the last year going into this year, but you know, time will tell.
Um, one thing we know, and you're totally right, is that it's not going to go according to plan, right? It's not going to go according to plan. There's going to be somebody who was undrafted who's really good and sticks around and has a real career. There's going to be somebody that's been drafted, that's been banked on, that's going to fall on their fucking face and they're going to stink. And then there's going to be the undrafted player that, for whatever reason, outperforms the drafted player. That always happens as well. So why don't we make our predictions right now? Who is, if you got to go with one huge, give me one huge hit, give me one huge miss, give me one bold prediction.
Hit as in who's going to hit from this draft class? Who's
Yeah,
going to
it doesn't have to be from the draft class. It could be from just anybody they've added this offseason, either draft, undrafted free agent or veteran free agent. Give me a hit this offseason, give me a miss, and give me a bold prediction.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy for me to just say I think Michael Williams is going to be a hit. I just think his foundation in his power and his run defense, he's going to contribute from day one. I'm well on the record in being a big proponent of his game and what he's going to develop, and the fact that like there's a lot of work that he can and will have to do to improve as a pass rusher, but he's working with a pretty good group. He's going to get to learn from Nick Bosa. I think that's going to be a hit. Um, Whiffs are tough because I never want to put it on any rookie that he's just going to be a whiff.
But you know it's
I
going to
like
happen. There's going to be some pick that, man, they had high hopes. I mean, just look at
also,
look at their draft history. I mean,
yeah, I
it's
mean it's tough.
screaming with
Connor
misses.
Colby, I'll say Connor Colby as, but it's a seventh rounder, which doesn't even feel like a take. But if you want to whiff, I wasn't impressed with his tape. I think there's athleticism there, but I just want more. I want him to be meaner. I want him to drive. So if I had to guess a whiff, I'll say him. And then you wanted what? One more hot take?
Yeah, give me a bold prediction. Either somebody that you really like, or something that that just something bold.
I guess it's not bold to say that their run defense is going to be monumentally improved. But I do think so. Teams ran the ball almost 55% of the time between the tackles against the 49ers last year. I'm going to say that number is going to drop to like the low 40s. That's not a sexy bold prediction, but it will be telling by the end of the year that you can't just try and run duo against them straight up the middle and clear out their defensive tackles and go after the linebackers. I'm going to say Alfred Collins and CJ West really help them there. And Michael Williams, too, is setting an edge. And teams have to try and, bounce it outside a little bit more instead of trying to run, again, straight up the middle. So I'm going to say going from almost the highest rate in the NFL of teams running it up the gut against the 49ers, they're going to be like middle of the pack at best, because teams are just going to realize it's not a viable option with somebody of that size and of that force in the run game.
I'll say my big winner is going to be CJ West. I think CJ West is going to be outstanding. I think he's going to be strong. I think you're going to be a plug and play starter. I think he's going to help right away. So I like CJ West. I'm going to say the big miss is probably going to be Alfred Collins. That's just a guess, and I have no sources, but I'm concerned about just the fact that he's not healthy, and I'm concerned about his lack of health going forward. That's a concern. When I saw him, my first thought was, you know what, this guy's got huge long levers. It's going to help him. His long arms are going to help him. His long legs are going to hurt him. And
Yeah.
And I'll stick with that. I'll say Collins winds up being very disappointing. West winds up being hugely satisfying. And as far as bold predictions, I'll say this. I'll make a couple bold predictions. Isaiah Nayer will outperform Junior Bergen. Corey Kiner will outperform James Jordan or Jordan James. And my other bold prediction is either Connor Colby or Drew Moss will wind up starting at left guard for Ben Barch. I know there's Spencer Burford in the mix there too, but my guess is Connor Colby or Drew Moss, who both looked pretty good, I thought, yesterday at practice.
Moss, they don't have pads on.
They don't have pads on, but I was just looking for, like, I liked, to me, Drew Moss looked an awful lot like Jarrett Kingston the year before, as far as he looks kind of like a power lifter. He looks looks a little bit more athletic than just a blob. There's a lot of blob offensive linemen, and Kingston carried a lot of weight in the upper body. He looked like a big power lifter. Well, Moss, you can kind of tell, he's got some athleticism to him. He's a big kid who's pretty athletic.
I'm excited to see him. He can move, and he's got a really strong upper half.
Yeah, he's impressive. So I'll say either Moss or Colby wind up starting. Kiner is better than James, and Nayer is better than Bergen. We'll see. And I'll say Collins is the bust and West is the star. Wide receiver wise, couple before we say goodbye here. Wide receiver wise, do the Niners have too many receivers, and they need they need to pare that thing down, or do the Niners have not enough receivers? I bring this up because John Feliciano the other day saw that Gabe Davis got cut, was like, oh, he'd be the perfect fit for the Niners. I saw lists of guys who were going to be traded after the draft, and there's a bunch of receivers on there, including Romeo Doubs, who I've always loved going back to Nevada. I just think that the 49ers, you could look at the list and go, Ayuk, Pearsall, Jennings, Robinson, Watkins, Cowing, Gage, Tariq Owens, Trent Taylor, Hodgins, Nayer, Bergen. That's a lot of guys. You got 12 receivers there. You're probably only going to keep 5, 6. So Ayuk is, I don't know what you can get out of Ayuk. Just say he's hurt. Debo's gone. So you got Pearsall, he's 1. JJ is 2. Demarcus Robinson's 3, but he's not going to be there for the first month probably.
Right. First 3 games, yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Watkins is 4. Then maybe Cowing would be 5. Trent Taylor, Gage, and Tariq Owens are not NFL, so I'd put those guys aside. But then you got Isaiah Hodgins would be 6 for me. Isaiah Nayer would be 7. Junior Bergen would be 8. I mean, you got 8 guys right there that are, I think, legit. I mean, I think Hodgins is NFL legit. Nayer is definitely a freak. Bergen is a return guy who to listen to the special teams coach talk about Bergen, I would say it's almost a lock that he makes the roster.
He said he wants to be a Hall of Famer. He said, his goal is to make the Hall of Fame. We'll
see. I mean, that's a pretty lofty goal. But how do you feel about receiver. I mean, Gabe Davis had a 200-yard playoff game against Kansas City, and he's only 26. He's not old. I don't know if he's the answer, but he is a big-bodied ex-receiver that can make plays down the field. How do you feel about this receiving core? Do you feel great? Do you feel good?
No,
do you
don't
feel like
great about it.
Would you like one more guy? I could see them even trading a guy. Like if you told me that Jacob Cowing got dealt in August for a different receiver,
But who's going to give up anything for Jacob Cowing?
Well, I'm just saying I could see the Niners flipping a young receiver for another young receiver. I'm not saying that they would get anybody a star. I'm just saying,
I just don't
let's just say you think Jacob Cowing is not going to make your team. Jordan Watkins is going to be your vertical threat. All right. Maybe there's a team out there that wants a speed guy and is willing to trade you a bigger bodied guy. I don't know, but it seems to me that receiver wise, it's intriguing because there's a lot of names there.
It's a pretty
but then if you go through it, you realize that there's not. It's like a cotton candy thing. It's like not a lot there,
Yeah, I listen. I think if you have a group where it's Pearsall, Jennings, the problem is Robinson not being there makes it really tricky. So like day one, is it Pearsall, Jennings, and then you're keeping Cowing because he's been around, but you don't really want to play Cowing, so it's Watkins. That would worry me. I like Pearsall a lot. I like Jennings a lot, but like having a rookie, unproven fourth rounder who's like, again, he produced at Ole Miss. I liked his tape, but like that's not what I want to start the season with. That would worry me. I do think bringing in another veteran, bringing in Demarcus Robinson, where it's like he's the guy you need while Ayuk recovers, and then he's not available for the first 3 games of the season is insane. Like I liked what Demarcus Robinson has done the last few years, but like, how do you not do your due diligence there and know that that's going to be a problem? I do think I don't necessarily know that Gabe Davis actually is the greatest fit for the Niners, but they could certainly use a proven NFL receiver who's got speed and has performed in playoff games. So again, is he an elite scheme fit for them? I don't know if it matters. I do think they need probably one more proven guy because you talk about once you get to like Watkins after him, it's like we're talking about Bergen and Russell Gage. It's not great. It's not great. So I wonder if that's the late summer move or if that's something where in training camp quickly or after OTAs they say this group's not going to cut it and we're going to need to bring somebody in.
Let's talk offensive line. I think a lot of people's biggest criticism of the Niners was that a lot of people felt like they needed offensive linemen and didn't go for an offensive lineman until Connor Colby with their second 7th round pick, and spent very little draft capital there. And they don't seem like they have any real seriousness about themselves in investing in an area that other people feel is very essential. They clearly don't, and it's, I don't even want to hear, don't tell me, and I don't want to hear any pro 49er person tell me I'm wrong. Don't tell me I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. I'm right. They haven't invested in their offensive line in a long freaking time. And this goes back generations. They didn't invest in the offensive line when they had Bob McKittrick. Harris Barton and Bubba Paris were like their only high picks on the offensive line during that entire era. They always did it with guys who were undrafted. They always did it with 11th round picks. They don't even have an 11th round anymore. 12th round picks. Jesse Sapolu was an 11th round pick. They found guys that fit their scheme, and everybody celebrated it because they won championships. People loved Bob McKittrick. They loved the Niner offensive line. The Niner offensive line, despite the fact that they were not big name guys, they were incredibly well received as far as the Pro Bowl was concerned every year during a lot of those Super Bowl years. Guy McIntyre and Randy Cross and a number of those guys made the Pro Bowl. I mean, Bart Oates, I think, made a Pro Bowl, and they had all kinds of guys making the Pro Bowl when they were winning. So now they're doing the exact same thing that they've always done, except they're going to the Super Bowl. They're just not winning the Super Bowl. Forster is considered to be a top-tier offensive line coach. He's like, hey, I love these guys. PFF doesn't. Left to right, it's Trent Williams, Ben Barch, Jake Brendel, Dom Pooney, Colton McKivitz. I would say I'm only really satisfied with Trent Williams and Dom Pooney.
Yeah.
And yet the 49ers sound like they're satisfied with what they're getting out of McKivitz and Brendel.
McKivitz was good last year. I'll say that.
He graded out better than people think, and he didn't make very
He
much money. He's in a contract year this year, I believe.
I mean, he wasn't the problem last year. It was Aaron Banks who got a hilarious contract from the Packers. I don't know what film they were watching. I like talking to Aaron Banks, but he objectively had a really bad year. Jake Brendel, it got better as it went, but the first month of the season, he looked like he should almost be cut. That's
He had a
just how it looked
PFF.
on tape.
Brendel had a PFF of 67.9. That's not good. That's a really low number. And Banks is now in Green Bay. So you're looking at Connor Colby, Drew
here's their approach,
Nick Sickell, Matt Hennessy, Spencer Burford. I mean, those are your options.
And this goes to Firster because we asked him about that. And he said explicitly that in like the first 2 rounds, there's a steep drop off with skill positions and skill position talent. And he'd rather get the guy that you can put the ball in his hands and he can do something with it, as opposed to, an offensive lineman who cannot touch the ball. That's his belief, and he's the offensive line coach. And there's something too of him being like, well, it gives me job security because I can coach these guys up and turn someone who's sort of mediocre, small investment into something. And to their credit, like, they have done that. They've clearly succeeded with just putting very few resources in and just turning a Jake Brendel into a starting center, and just, they might just end up going with Ben Barch as their left guard. And they've been able to survive, but it's also cost them in big moments. Whereas like teams like the Eagles are investing constantly in their offensive line. Like the Chiefs have had terrible tackles, but they've tried. They've tried to invest there, and they brought in Jalen Moore and they drafted Josh Simmons. There is at least conscious investment. And so I think the 49ers belief is, especially in the interior, let's just do it for cheap. We're never going to pay big money. And I actually agree with not paying big money for some of these guards, because the guard market has kind of got out of control. Like Aaron Banks, I know it's really a 1-year deal and then it's like an option, but like he should not have gotten that deal based off of what he did last season. But yeah, it's just not something they value. They value center. If there's a veteran center, because they ask a lot of their centers to understand the scheme, and they value tackle. Guards, they're like, well, we're going to find somebody. And again, to their credit, they've done that. I do think they're a little too particular about what they're looking for. And a couple guys went off the board, I think at 100 before they drafted Upton Stout. The Raiders went back-to-back offensive lineman, William Grant. And then I think there's a Texas Tech offensive lineman that I think
Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant went right in front of them.
So
right in front of those guys.
Of it. But that's also happened to him before, like Roger Rosengarten with the Ravens last year. The Ravens snuck up a pick before and got him with a lot of rumblings at the 49ers, like Roger Rosengarten. So I think they're a little too particular about what they look for. And also, like Aaron Banks, they could have had Creed Humphrey. Remember? They drafted Aaron Banks over Creed Humphrey. So there's a little bit of like, we just want guys who have like a decent 3-cone, who have some ability to get out in space. And because they want agile offensive linemen, that's why they are so particular. So it's like not every guy, like a Tyler Booker, would never fit the scheme. So I think they are going to probably regret this team, but I think philosophically they just think they can get away with it. And for the most part, they've been able to, even though it costs them in big moments.
Tyler Booker would have fit their scheme. He absolutely would fit. He would have fit any scheme. Tyler Booker, you don't have to have 2 mobile guards. You only really need to have 1 mobile guard. You don't have to have 2 guys that can pull around the side. You've had power guards. They had a Mike Iupati back in the day. They had a Aaron Banks
totally
yesterday.
Different scheme, a totally different.
But then they had Aaron Banks last year.
Yeah, but Aaron Banks actually
he had a down year, but he had a good year the year before. I'm just saying, a guy like Booker is a road grader, and he's going to have an awesome NFL career. And
we'll see.
I've talked to many offensive line coaches who think that. I mean, Baldy himself was like, dude, he thinks Booker's going to be an awesome player in the NFL.
Well, he's super physical, but like he doesn't move well at all. And there's just like a desire to finish that's like That's awesome. I want a hyper aggressive. You see it and it pops off tape, but there is like a steep downside, and I think the Cowboys really overvalued him. And there's some major athletic concerns. I don't think he's a fit here. I strongly disagree with that.
I think you're wrong. The Niners went for a couple offensive tackles yesterday. Nicholas Frere comes in from Tennessee. Andre Dillard was with Green Bay. Before that, he was with Philadelphia. I took some time and watched these guys. I mean, they're both intriguing and both not intriguing at the same time. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
Nicholas Frere is he's got a lot of what you're looking for as far as just body type, right? I mean, he's 6'5", he's 316 pounds, he's got great long arms, a lot of the physical profile that, 10 3/4 inch hands, 6'5", 5.14 in the 40 coming out. That was a great time. That was 75th percentile. 316 pounds, 34-inch arms. There's a lot to like physically about
Except for the
Nicholas
tape.
Petit Frere. He just doesn't, he's underpowered. It's like when you see him, he just does not hold up against the bull rush. He's got a lot of good traits. He can play both tackle spots. He's a pretty good athlete. He can definitely move his feet. He's got great arm length, but he doesn't have anchor strength. And what I saw was just a lot of Nicholas Petit Frere. If it was him showing, if you wanted him to show some quickness and some athleticism, it was there. If you wanted to show him, if you wanted to see him as a run blocker, I thought it was there. But when you looked at him as a pass protector, he struggles with some of the extreme speed, but then that's not his real weakness. His real weakness is he can't sink his hips. He has no power, and so he just gets bull rushed right into the lap of the quarterback.
Yeah,
So
that's their type, though.
he had, but I don't know if he's their type because he graded out last year as like the 5th percentile or something. I mean, he was one of the lowest graded PFF players across the board in pass protection.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
They just need bodies. They just need bodies,
Yeah,
Larry. And these guys
but
have at
he's
least
not the
played.
answer.
No, he's not. Dillard is more promising, but he's also been inconsistent.
Now Dillard was a first round pick. I kind of liked, the film, his Green Bay film, to be completely honest. But he's another, and he definitely is big, strong. I mean, he's a legitimate tackle size, arm length,
Yeah.
speed. I mean, Dillard physically is exactly what you're looking for. I mean, you could make the argument both these guys if you just
he
looked
could
at
make the
them.
roster for sure. There's a chance. Like he's Petit Frere. It's not looked good, but like I think they're going to have an open competition for that swing tackle spot along with Humphreys because if Humphreys is healthy, he'll get it. But I think they're going to keep that door open and just say, whoever wants it, go get it.
What did you think of the Humphreys pickup? I mean, it just seemed like he was in Kansas City last year. He's another guy that graded out really lowly. He's also had injuries.
That I didn't love his agent being like, he's finally healthy and ready to go, which is like, all right, it's not the most inspiring comment from an agent. Like he's finally he's not injured anymore. So that I think that tells you last year he wasn't right. But again, he's been a really productive NFL tackle for a long time. I think if you get a healthy version of him and you're investing pretty cheaply, yeah, it's absolutely worth a spin. The pedigree is there. And yeah, and I think at this point their approach is smart of saying, all right, well, we paid Trent, we're keeping McKivitz right tackle, and then whoever is semi competent and healthy, you're going to be our backup offensive tackle. I think it's a pretty reasonable approach.
Looking at this team now, where do you see where's their what's the weakness? What's the
Safety
weak
is
spot?
bad to me. I am not impressed at all with their safety group because Malik Mustafa. Listen, maybe he's ready for the start of the season. Marquise Siegel's a rookie. I don't know if if he can really play center field. He's playing a lot of nickel at Kansas State, even though they drafted a nickel. So it's like he might just be a special teamer. Day one, Jair Brown. I like Jair talking to him, and I just want him to play better. He just was not impressive last year, and he takes some really woeful angles. And then some of the other guys that they brought in, like Cyron Neal and Jason Pinnock, and Richie Grant, like other teams, when you sign them, are like, thank God they're gone, which is not exactly inspiring. So I'm not sure that they have a good answer at safety, especially if Malik Mustafa is not ready day one. They've certainly got a lot of guys who are maybe special teamers who have played enough, and they're going to give them a chance. And I think maybe it's after OTAs, if they don't like what they've seen, you go late window and you pick up a veteran because there are some lingering veterans out there. But safety is my biggest concern with this team right now.
Mustafa is a player. We just don't know when he's going to be healthy. Brown is interesting because in a lot of ways, it's interesting to me that they've fallen in love with the same kind of player. I mean, in a lot of ways, Tayshaun Gibson and Jair Brown are the same freaking guy. Tayshaun Gibson is an older guy. Jair Brown's a younger guy, but in a lot of ways, their profile is identical. Both these guys are high productive interceptors. Jair was that going back to Penn State. Gibson's definitely been that. He's got like almost 40 career interceptions. So you look at them and go, oh, these guys can play coverage, but they don't really stand up in coverage. They've got a good nose for the ball. So like if the ball gets tipped in the air, damn if Jair Brown's not coming down with it, or damn if a guy like a veteran is coming down with it like that. I mean, a guy like Tayshaun Gibson, those guys have a nose for the ball, but they're not great cover guys.
Yeah.
So they get kind of pigeonholed as their coverage guys, but in reality, they're guys, they're physical safeties who have a good nose for the football, but they're not great coverage guys. So that's what I'm hoping. Concern. I'm hoping Siegel is going to be a good guy that can cover at safety because they definitely lack that coverage ability. I'm really interested to see the two veterans they signed because I liked Pinnock at Pitt and I liked Richie Grant at App State. And I thought Richie Grant, I don't look at Richie Grant the way I look at George Odom. Like I think a lot of Niner people or a lot of people this summer or this spring when he was signed were like, oh, well, he's a special teamer. George Odom is a special teamer. Like he's not. If you've got to play George Odom from scrimmage, you're screwed. I don't think Richie Grant and Pinnock are on that level. I think they could play some safety for the Niners from scrimmage. I don't think they would be totally fish out of water. What safety is out there that you would have interest in? Because I looked at that list and to me it was kind of a uninspiring list.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the guy from the Colts that they sniffed around.
Blackman.
Yeah, Julian Blackman is a guy they sniffed around last year. I think I want to say there that who's the guy that used to play for the Seahawks? Quandre Diggs. I think he might still be out there.
Yeah, Diggs is out there.
Justin Simmons is not quite a fit. Like he's obviously got pedigree, but he's going to be a little expensive. There's like one more. The guy that played literally for Robert Saleh. That I'm also blanking on his name because
Chuck Clark,
not head coach. Yeah, Clark. Yeah, he's. I would bet that
if he's healthy, that might not be bad.
Bring him in late window. They always bring in a veteran safety like in week 2 of training camp. Every single year they bring in a couple. They sign one right before and they sign one a couple weeks in after they cut the first guy. Chuck Clark is a guy that has at least played for Saleh and is going to be cheap. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him in.
Let me give you a few names before we get out of here. Just last thing before we get out. I'm just going to give you names of young guys that are unproven. And all I want you to say is yes, if you think they're going to make it, and no, if you think they're not.
Yep.
Okay. And we'll just go through a few of them because there's, Jake, I definitely feel like there's some guys that are in that category right now. We'll start at receiver. Tariq Owens. He made a really nice grab yesterday.
No.
You see that grab he made yesterday, kind of a leaping grab. So you're saying no? There was talk about maybe a month ago, that they saw some good things in him, but you're saying no.
I'm just giving you yes or no, and it's a no.
Yep, yes or no. Okay, that's fair enough. I would probably say no too. Jacob Cowing.
I would say yes because their depth is so thin. Even though my like gut is no, I just don't think they have a lot of good options. So I'll say yes, but my heart says no.
I'm going to say yes. Spencer Burford.
Yeah, they don't have. He's a guy that's been around. Last year of his deal, can't hurt. Knows the system.
You think he starts over Barch at left guard? I think he probably should.
I think Barch starts.
Really? Okay. How about Nick Sickell?
Is he on the roster? Is that what you're asking, or is?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess he's now in that mode where if he's a 22 draft choice, I would say he either has to be on the roster or no.
I guess he'll be on the roster. They liked having him around. I'm not a fan, but
Drake Nugent, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
If they keep Sickell, they won't keep another center.
Braden Willis, yes or no?
No. Yeah.
Jake Tongas, yes or no?
No. I'll say they ride with three, and it's like Dwelly is like the third one.
Mason Pline, yes or no?
No, definitely not.
Definitely no on Mason Pline.
What have you seen?
Oh, no, I just love the profile. I love 6'8". I love mechanical engineering major. I love an above the rim basketball player, athlete. I think he's smart. I think he's athletic. I think he's going to show big this summer.
Yeah.
Patrick Taylor, yes or no?
Yeah, I think they did it last year, so yes.
Izzy Abanaconda, yes or no?
No.
See, I would say yes on Izzy, no on Patrick, but we'll see. Robert Beal, yes or no?
No.
Really? 6'4", 260, can't get it going. Not going to happen.
I know what his size is, Larry. I've watched him play.
I got to be honest. I haven't watched him play that much. I haven't really seen much of him. I don't. If he's gotten out there, it's always eluded me.
I mean, I guess that Drake Jackson's gone. He's got a better chance.
He definitely is big and strong and fast. God, if that's an indictment on Kasarik if they can't coach.
I guess they need bodies, so maybe yes.
Kalia Davis, yes or no?
No.
Wow. I would probably agree with you, even though that one hurts, but I kind of agree. I think there's durability issues there. I'm going to say yes on Teron Jackson, yes or no. But
no.
You haven't seen him or you don't like him. Tatum Bethune, yes or no?
God, you could say yes or it could be 50-50 on every single linebacker they have not named Nick Martin or Fred Warner.
D. Winters, yes or no?
Well, I guess Winters, yes. It's like
Winters, yes.
To me,
okay.
it's Warner, Winters, and Martin, and everybody else is just. We'll see. I guess I'll say yes on Bethune.
Graham.
Jalen Graham.
Yep. Jalen Graham.
No.
Curtis Robinson.
Yes, begrudgingly.
Okay. Jalen Mahoney?
No.
Here's the toughest one. Darrell Luter.
Yes.
What's happened there?
He just hasn't played, I guess. I don't know. They talked him up so much, and then he just hasn't played. It's been really weird. Like they talked him up so much, and it's like I don't know what he is because he's not been on the field. So I have no idea.
Yeah,
but I think he'll be on the roster.
There's just something about him. He's too big, too strong, too fast. All right, here we go. Last two supers, and we're bailing. James Foster says Dillard and Humphreys thoughts on 71. We gave you that. And Barry Ford says, you rock, Larry. Thanks, Jake. Great info, bros. That's going to do it for us. Jake, have a great Saturday. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. And, of course, thanks to Mancini's. Our proud sponsor of today's show is Mancini's. Once again, use that code Krug10 at checkout and you'll save an extra 10% at all Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. What do you got cooking, Jake, the rest of the day? You're off doing stuff? Anything fun?
I'm chilling. I am chilling today. Gonna hang out and work a little bit on finishing up the 49ers element, doing like a 49ers draft guide addendum. So again, get that on our channel, and then subscribe to the Hutch Report. I'm doing my own writing on 49ers. I'm going to have some detailed stuff and just some basic updates, standard newsletter that's going to tell you what's actually going on. No fluff, cutting right to the chase. So
awesome, man. Everybody sign up for Jake and Dieter's YouTube channel and get their draft guide. And as you heard Jake say earlier in the stream, they're doing a 49ers specific draft review guide, and you guys are definitely going to want to get your hands on that. So definitely give Jake and Dieter and their YouTube channel a follow. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Jake. Thanks to all of you. Have a great rest of your Saturday. I'm off to watch a little high school baseball, one of my favorite things to do. For everybody, have a great day. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been